All right, guys, we are back with another episode of Austin Comedy Network interviews. Today, we are here with the very funny Philip Abraham, aka Phil is Funny, on all platforms. Phil runs 3 local shows in town. He runs Rex the Dog Show, Comedy Mixtapes, and also Austin Shitty Limits.
Hell yes.
Perfect. Now, Phil, first off, we're going to start with some lighthearted conversation. I wanted to get to know you a little bit more as a person. We've had several conversations about your upbringing and several other things about your travels, and I really wanted to discuss that in front of a larger audience. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where does your story start?
I was born in Houston, Texas
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s. Figure out what the last year for the straight baby was it?
Yeah.
That's one of DK's jokes.
Uh-huh.
In the 80s, and then basically my parents were like blue collar workers.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a nurse, my dad was a mechanic, and they were in New York and Houston.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me and my sister. So they sent me to live with my grandma in India when I was 1. So that was a big change. I don't remember much, but yeah. So I was there in India for like at least 2 years with my grandma. Then came back to America. Mostly grew up in Texas. A little bit back in India again. I got a bit about going to boarding school, Catholic boarding school in India for 5th grade.
And be a little bit more specific about the region, because you're from South India, correct?
Yeah, South India. A lot of people don't know, but there's a place called Kerala,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on the very southern tip of India. And Kerala is a pretty unique place because, like, the oldest mosque, synagogue, and
That's where Buddha's from, no?
yeah,
Like
essentially.
that region.
Yeah. So Ayurvedic medicine comes from there.
Uh-huh.
One of the oldest martial arts comes from there.
Which is
Kalaripayat.
okay. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's the oldest recorded martial arts in history.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty unique place. 99% literacy rate.
Uh-huh.
But Kerala, the people there are called Malayalis,
Uh-huh.
and we speak a language called Malayalam,
Uh-huh.
and that's the closest language to Sanskrit that's still spoken today.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I wonder if they have a deep connection to Hinduism. A lot of people forget how much India is important in terms of world culture. And the reason why I say this is, like, India contains the oldest religion in modern history. I mean, that we know of. The oldest recorded history is Hinduism. I mean, the oldest recorded religion is Hinduism.
The only one that I know that predates Hinduism is Zoroastrianism.
I don't think that predates Hinduism, though.
Yeah,
I believe
yeah.
Hinduism is 44,000 years old or something like that.
Jamie, can you look it up?
What was that?
Look it up, Jamie.
Let's see if we can get an answer on that.
Because Zoroastrianism goes back, dude, and there's only a few people. Like, have you heard of Tata in India?
No, I've never heard of that
It's one of the
before.
largest companies in the world, Tata.
Uh-huh.
But they're Zoroastrians, the Tata family.
Okay, so Zoroastrianism may predate may predate Hinduism is the answer
Yeah,
that Google
yeah.
is giving me.
But definitely Buddhism Buddhism came from Hinduism,
Yeah,
right? So,
but they all are still considered separate.
yeah.
And those are two of the those are the two of the most widely practiced religions in the world. And you can't even. I don't even know if you could. Buddhism is classified as religion, but I think it's more of a series of teachings, in my opinion.
It's the same thing with Hinduism. It's just Hinduism became more like religion
Yeah.
based, but it like all the original precepts of Hinduism is based on like, God being within you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've
You-
read a lot of the Hindu
Yeah.
Vedic texts.
Yeah, in essence, we are all gods,
Yeah.
right? And then they kind of got more commercial, and it became like about a bunch of gods and the more modern Hinduism today. It's different.
One of the most enlightening books that I ever read was, I guess you could consider it more of a Hindu Vedic story. It's called Ashtavakra Gita, and it's essentially this story of old, I guess you could call him like Buddhist hermit, or Hindu hermit who helps King Janaka with his enlightenment. And what he does is he posits a lot of these questions and metaphors for him that I think really helped break down a lot of the core concepts of Hinduism for me. And at least it helps me a lot with my meditation. Like reading that book was actually one of the most enlightening books that I've read. And I've spent significant time interested in theology, reading the Bible, etc. And yeah, I mean, I really like that. I actually have discovered it myself a lot through Hinduism and Buddhism in particular. So I think that people forget all the time that the East is actually a lot older than the West, which is, I mean, because Western power dominates everything now, but Eastern history is a lot more.
Dude, I'll tell you something funny. I was in South India and I was with some friends. We were shooting a documentary about snake boat racing, and we had musicians with us from South India. And they're all like amazing musicians, like different types of musicians. But I was talking about, one of them's a violinist, and I played violin for like 10 years, so I was talking to him about something. And I said, no, like the classical. And when I'm talking about classical, I'm referencing European classical, which is 16th through 18th centuries, right?
Yeah.
And he's referencing classical Indian music, which is
It's like 180.
literally like some AD shit. Like,
Yeah.
like right before they crossed over to AD or
Yeah.
some shit. Like it's ancient, like real classical.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, just like the way we think about our culture because we're in it.
Yeah.
There's a supremacist view, right? Obviously, because we're not aware of other cultures.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff just escapes our peripherals as being part of Western culture.
Yeah.
We dismiss a lot of Eastern philosophy or Eastern religion, Eastern practices. There's that whole thing where people will have this idea that Chinese stuff is made cheaply, and like they can kind of be right to some extent, but it's the same thing with American products. It's not like it's not like anyone builds stuff to last anymore, at least with the.
Well, it's also they're paying for cheap shit.
Yeah.
From China.
Yeah, and then we inflate it and put our logos on it.
Yeah, because they want the cheap shit.
Like is an iPhone cheap? Is an iPhone cheap?
That's
it's made in China.
You got a point. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you this. The interesting thing about Kerala, you know how all of India is like 95% Hindu. Kerala.
Oh, really? I thought the percentage had gone significantly down since, because didn't the Muslims come down and actually convert a lot of people in northern India? Or am I mistaken?
No, you got a small, like, there are millions of Muslims, but that's like, I'm talking about 2%. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a small amount, but they're, the Hindus there, they got Modi, who's president.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like Trump in the sense that he's a nationalist. So he believes that Hinduism should be the national religion when India's never been a religious country. It's always been a secular country. So he's kind of like, making it like Hindus.
Yeah.
And like thousands of Muslims.
President Modi just got elected for his third term.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Is he the president there or prime minister?
He's the prime minister, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Jamie, can you double check that? Make sure yeah, Prime Minister of India, is it Modi? He's one of the two. But
yeah.
Anyways, that guy's like, Hindus are the best, Muslims should get the fuck out. So, so Muslims are getting like fucking killed and shit by the thousands over there. Yeah. But Kerala is 40%
prime minister or president?
Prime Minister. 40% Hindu. The rest is Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever.
Oh, okay.
Because all three of those
diverse community.
all three of those major religions
have a foothold in India through there.
All of their worshiping places are the oldest in all of Asia. There, they started there essentially for Asia.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that because of the Dutch Northeast India Company, like the British coming in?
I think it has to do with the Middle East being so close there. So you have St. Thomas coming over. St. Thomas is buried there, the Apostle Thomas.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a Catholic church there, Marthoma Church, and so it's St. Thomas's burial ground is there. So there's a Jewish population there that was massive too.
Mm-hmm.
And when Israel formed, the Jews of that city moved to Israel and formed a city of the same name in Kerala.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Jamie, that's too much research right there.
Do you have any interesting stories from living in India, your second time as you were, you weren't quite a teenager, but in your formative years?
Oh, for boarding school?
Yeah.
Oh, boarding school is rough, man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they took me over there, and then they were like, but you had to live there. So I grew up here. So just imagine you grew up here, right?
And end up in Africa?
Yeah. And then in fifth grade, they're like, we're going to take you to Africa.
Uh-huh.
We're going to put you in a boarding school. You're going to live there,
Uh-huh.
right? And it's Catholic, right? And there's the military aspect to it, too, kind of, because of Catholicism. And so you live there, you stay there. You don't see your family, nobody. And you're there. And there are kids there that had been there for years without seeing their family.
Really?
Yeah. And they were kids from, like, Middle East, Europe.
Did you ever get scared for a second and think, was this going to be me?
Well, I guess the first time I was like, man, this is like prison, was when I got lice. And they shaved my head just like just like Daniel's head right there. I love making fun of bald people because they think I'm bald. So they shaved my head because I had lice, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, dude,
I've been shaved bald as a kid. It's one of the most detrimental
dude,
things
I looked like
do.
I was in Auschwitz, bro. It was fucked up. It was sad. I was not. I was not in a good situation. So I basically. I'll tell you the regiment for the day. Just hear me out. This is crazy. You wake up at 6 a.m. or 5:30 or whatever. You have to go do exercises like running and push-ups and all this stuff. As like, you remember Enter the Dragon?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like that. Enter the Dragon when all those guys are all fucking out there like in unison.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that every morning. Then we'd say the Pledge of Allegiance to the Indian flag. We would, what else would we do? All this shit. And then you have breakfast, you get ready for school, and then you have your school from 10 a.m. to like 4. And then from 4, you have like gym stuff or outdoor stuff. And then after that, you have to go to study hall, which is like a dark-ass fucking place with lanterns and shit. And it's like from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you're in study hall, and then you go to sleep. So that every day, just imagine that.
That's a really rigorous schedule.
Yeah.
So you have no free time.
No free time. And, so, and you're talking in between moments. You're not getting to actually sit down. Or at night when you're sleeping, you're talking to people. But there was a kid that was crying in there one night, and he was just like, oh, yeah. And like you would hear shit like that. So it was a little fucked up. But I started a riot at that school during dinner time. And they had the metal trays and all that stuff. So I was like upset because there's this thing called a papadum. Anybody been to an Indian restaurant? Yeah. Okay. There's those fried things that look like tortilla chips, but they're big. Have you seen them? They put them in a basket sometimes. Okay, so that is like a favorite thing of mine because you can crunch it up in rice and it's so good. And they would only give me one. So I was like, fuck y'all. And then I started getting crazy. I threw my tray.
It was a moment where you realized you were American again. You're like, freedom and liberty.
Yeah.
More food.
One papadum. The legend is I started a riot there for a papadum. Yeah.
But you kind of just said you did.
I did it. And I got in trouble, and then they called my parents. I was like, "What are you gonna do? Send me back to my parents? I'd rather go home." You know what I mean? At least home in India, because we had a home like where we lived there in India. So it's not America, but at least you be with your family.
Yeah.
It's fucked up,
Yeah.
right? So finally, last straw, I threatened to jump off the fucking top of the school, which was like 5 stories. And then my uncle came with his motorcycle, came by, and then I told him the situation, and he was like, he felt bad. So he's like, he took me back home, and my uncle was like, you can't fucking send it back there. So they fucking, I went to a school that was closer, but I would go daily and come back. So I spent like 3 months in that fucking hellhole. That was my Vietnam, guys.
So how long have you been doing comedy at this point, Phil?
It's coming on 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you decide to get into comedy?
Man, I don't know. I think I was just drawn to it, but I was fucking scared as shit to do it. And I finally had some sort of breaking point where I pushed myself. I think I went and saw Cap City open mic, right? And that was like, okay, I need to try to get up on a mic at least. So I finally worked up the courage to get up, and I went up at Creek in the Cave. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Comedy club,
of course, yeah,
here in Austin. And I went up at Creek, and then that was it. I was fucking loved it.
Yeah. Is there anything that particularly pushed you while watching the people perform at Cap City to go, man, I can do this? As at least in my experience, and I've asked a lot of people this question, and I've got a lot of mixed answers. But I just wonder, is it like you see quite a few people who are doing really bad, and you're like, well, they've had the courage to go up. I can't be worse than that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, everybody was killing up there, and I was like, wow, these are really good for the open mic, because Tuesday they do a curated open mic.
Yeah.
And they're all good comedians they put up.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'll put up people they've never heard of, you know? So anyways, most of the show was like pretty good. I was like impressed. And then one guy went up and bombed the entire 3 minutes. And I was like, yeah, I could do this. Let me try this shit. And so, yeah, that was it. But comedy's always been there in my life, my entire life.
Yeah,
like,
you've always been attracted to comedy.
Yeah, attracted to comedy has been part of my kind of linguistic,
Your love
development.
language.
Yeah, it's the way I talk, like the way I adapted to all these different scenarios growing up too, I think.
Is you have to have a sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who get into comedy, a lot of them come in from the place of learning to be able to laugh at themselves and their life circumstances first, because it makes the ride so much easier. The adventure of life is if you could not drown in your sorrows and learn to laugh at things a little bit, like, wow, look at this situation that I found myself in. It makes life a whole lot easier. And a lot of people come from it from that point of view and like, wow, I'd love to bring this to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I never understood people who get like, well, I guess we've all been there, but like,
because comedy is not an easy road to fame. So like, people think a lot of people do comedy to try to get famous or anything. It's not the case.
No.
Yeah.
There's people that are already kind of famous, I guess, online who come and try to do comedy too, right? And some do well, some don't, but it's hard. It's its own thing, right?
It is.
But it's pretty amazing because I was doing film, independent film for 8 years. And
yeah, you told me you made a movie in India.
Yeah, I was making a documentary.
There's actually a funny story about that.
It was pretty good. It was we actually got into Sundance and Austin Film Society.
Well, I was talking about
Lab.
You were telling me a story about how the guy tried to. I don't know if it's the specific movie you're talking about where he like held all the film hostage and he had to go to India to go get it.
Yeah, dude. I swear to God, I trusted this editor there, right? So he had all the footage, and I came back to America, and we'd shot for, I want to say 3 years. Yeah, 3 years over 3 seasons. So the season's about 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's 3 years, 3 seasons. So it's like 6 months worth of footage, 6 to 7 months worth of footage. So he had all of it, and he was going to work on a rough cut.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sent me this rough cut, and I watched it. And, you know, sometimes I kind of, you know, jump the gun. I get a little crazy. I just say what I feel in the moment.
Yeah.
And I called him. I said, "This is shit." I was like, "This is shit because of this, this." And he said, "Fuck you." He told me that, you know, he was all like cursing at me and talking shit. And in 24 hours, I flew to South India, which is it takes 28 hours to get there. So I left in a day, and I got
how much
there
was that plane ticket?
like $2,000. Yeah. So I flew over there, and I fucking surprised him at his studio, and I showed up, and I just started taking the shit. And long story short, I had a guy with me, and then, you know, it turned into a back and forth.
Yeah.
And I may have choked him out. And then he called the police on me later. So I get back to my hotel, and I get a call at like 9:30 at night from the inspector of the fucking city. And I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. He's like, I need you to come into the station. There's been an allegation that you came and stole his shit. And I said, that's my shit. He goes, well, I need you to come in. So I called my cousin, who's, you know, big shot over there, politics-wise.
Yeah.
And he called them and said, don't go there. He called me back. He said, don't go tonight. Go tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a long story. It's crazy. There's all these characters involved. Because I got a guy who does oil deals in Saudi with me, who's my friend. And then he's picking up a bodybuilder to come with us to the station. Some South Indian bodybuilder is like fucking yoked up. Like this Saudi business guy, this yoked up dude. And then the Saudi guy recommended a lawyer. And we go get this lawyer. You should have saw this fucker. He looked homeless. He was wearing a white shirt, black dress pants, but they were the dirtiest things you've ever seen. 2 articles of clothing. And I was like, "This is my lawyer."
This guy knows the law.
So all 4 of us are go to the police station, and it's like a 3-day thing. And they were threatening to hold my passport, keep me in the country. If I went through with a lawsuit, that would take years, where my passport would be held. So long story short, we worked out a deal. Yeah, but I had to. He also escalated the thing and made allegations that I attacked his wife when his wife wasn't there, and I had a witness with me. It was just me, my friend, and the guy. So he just threw in his wife to make it more extreme, and the cops knew that he was lying about that too, because they were like, "Here, just give him $200 and we'll," or whatever it was.
It's probably just like a little extortion thing. I wonder, do they? This is a question that I have about you visiting India, being as that you were raised here. Do they look at you as being like different? Do you get treated a little bit different? Like, do they look at you as American?
Yeah, for sure, a little bit. But when I speak the language, they're always like impressed.
Yeah,
because they're, oh, okay, you're one of us.
Yeah,
because that's a hard language to learn.
Yeah, what language is it?
It's called Malayalam.
Oh, okay. So it's not even what are those?
Hindi.
The Hindi is the normal language in India.
That's the big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have over 100 dialects in India, though.
It's a lot.
If I'm not mistaken. It might be way more than that.
Hindi's like the national language, and then I think English, and then they have a language per fucking state and area. Yeah.
India is very diverse, like Africa, and that there's a lot of different regions with a lot of different people, and they don't look the same throughout the entire country.
I got jokes about my own family where we have such range, like from like white to like charcoal black, like in my own family, just within the immediate like first cousins.
Yeah, it's the same effect that happens in Africa. Like the people from the very north are a lot lighter than the people from the more equatorial or southern regions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very interesting. But one thing that I wanted to talk with you about is First off, what's your perception been since you started doing comedy? How much has it differed from what you thought it would be when you started? Do you get that question?
No, yeah, I guess
Like, have you been dismayed with some of the things you've
I never really thought about it.
you
I'm
just did.
I'm just doing
Like Nike said, just
what I
do it.
like doing. I'm just doing it day by day. Oh, okay, I want to tell a joke. Let me go tell a joke. I don't care who I'm telling it in front of.
Yeah.
And then so I don't put too much thought into the business or
Mhm.
until recently. I've been thinking about the social media shit and like making sure like stuff is getting out there, like
Yeah.
stand up clips, things like
Yeah.
that. But other than that, I really don't think about. I had no expectations, but yeah, it is.
Oh, that's a very freeing thing.
Yeah, because like, I don't know. I don't really have any expectations because it's too much out of my control.
Hmm.
Like I can just focus on being the best I can be
Mhm.
at this craft
Yeah.
that I'm trying to work on and figure out. But I can't control anything else, so I'm just gonna do that. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I think about it.
That's a very Eastern-like philosophy about things too. Don't control what you. Don't worry about the things you cannot control. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what? Another thing that I wanted to address is the fact that, of course, a hot button issue is the fact that you were banned from the Creek in the Cave for a joke that you did on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and since then you've done 2 podcasts about it. I wonder, has the state of anything improved? Do you feel like you have support in this community?
I definitely think there's people supportive of the situation, think that it's not right.
Mhm.
But also, it seems to be just one person, the owner of Creek, and there's nobody that's, in a position to.
Do anything about it?
Yeah, just
Because she
'cause
is the owner.
she's the owner and it's her, and she's, from everybody I spoke to, is pretty adamant about that position and not hearing any more about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's that. But I'll tell you what,
That sucks because that's pride.
yeah, that is something.
That's
I mean,
good. It's definitely ego and pride, and I have much appreciation for the Creek and the things that they've done for the comedy scene. They were the first club to open out
bro,
here.
I love the Creek.
Yeah,
It's
and I know you do.
the best club out there, and it's where I started.
Uh-huh.
And I was there every night at the mics.
Mhm. Yes, I know this.
We were there every night, and that's the last place to go after all the other sets you've done at that night, right?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be, at least in my experience, like the most genuine and pure like comedy club. Like
Yeah.
it's a place for the comedy community. Like
Yeah, and all levels of comedy can congregate there, and there's a download, a transfer of knowledge, and it also for people who maybe think it's out of grasp, it can become more palpable when you're seeing Shane Gillis with you talking to people and like you're around and
Yeah.
seeing these big comedians and you just saw them kill and then you're seeing them as human beings. It's just it's a nice thing for the community and for
it's very uplifting.
comedians. Yeah. For comedians who are developing, it's really good to see and be involved with.
Were you kind of disappointed with the result that you got?
With the banning?
Yeah.
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 I was pissed off for like a while, but then, I guess I started kind of seeing some of the positives. One, I'm not staying out at Creek till 3 a.m. every
Yeah,
night.
that is a positive.
Saving a lot of money on drinks and so on. And then also, it just kind of took me out of my comfort zone a little bit because I was comfortable going to Creek and spending time there and, just feeling, very at ease there.
Yeah.
Right? Although when I did the banana phone bit that I got banned for, I was nervous as fuck. But banana phone's like that. It's an intense experience. And
It is.
And I think it's great, going back to what you were saying about the self, right? As comedians, I think banana phone is great and things like that because it helps to break the self down. So if you take yourself so seriously, right? and you can't take a joke about yourself, Banana Phone's a great place to find
To
out
be humble.
that
Yeah.
you're sensitive,
Yeah.
and maybe you should, and the more you get desensitized from that, the more you can make fun of yourself.
Yeah, you let go of that ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Banana Phone, got the band. I lost track of where we were a second ago.
Oh no, it's okay. I was asking you. It kind of spun off from me asking you if you were disappointed with the result that you got.
There are some positives, like I said.
Yeah,
so
that's what you were just getting
I'm
into.
not. Yeah, it would be nice, like for that to be lifted or whatnot. But I don't see that happening. So it's kind of a permanent thing in my eyes. But the good thing is, like, that taking me out of comfort zone has pushed me to do all sorts of other shows in different places, things that I never thought I'd do, shows that I'm producing. And so the good thing is I'm getting stage time, like, regularly. I'm being able to go up, do
Yeah, over this last month, I'd say I definitely have seen your name on a lot more flyers. It seems like you've been really out and active in terms of getting on shows.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for you for that,
Thank
because
you,
you deserve
man.
it.
I
You're
appreciate
you're a great comic, and you're one of these people who I feel like you've been here for a really long time in the open mic scene and transitioning into being more of a show comic and spending your time doing shows. And you're a linchpin because you helped run several open mics, I believe, at this point, including like Sanjak, which is every Sunday, and you've also helped produce several shows within the city. You host a show every month at your own house.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful to have people like you around who can do things like that, because it makes all the difference to people who are coming up in a scene where there's more comedians than there are spots.
Dude.
No, so anybody who's willing to take on that responsibility and run a mic and run a show, particularly, there's one thing that I always say all the time is if you can host a show and you're not blackout drunk by the end of it, which is what I see, how I see a lot of people deal with it.
Yeah.
I believe that makes you a really great host more than anything, but also it shows how mature of a soul you have, because it's a hard thing to do. And I'm sure, as you've ran several mics and shows at this point, that you know that it can kind of change your perspective and your opinion on comedy and the people around you, because people will get mad at you for not being able to book their shows, for bumping them, for them missing a spot and then you not being able to let them on immediately, and then they'll go around and they'll say bad shit about you. And you're one person that I've never heard being as though you are a host, because all the hosts pretty much get it in terms of the the normal community gossip and banter, but you're one person that I've never heard anything bad about in terms of you producing shows or being a host. You've always been fair, and you're loved in the scene. And I just hope that you know that, even though most people can't do anything about the whole Creek situation, we do miss you as a personality. And I'm glad that you're out and getting out more again.
DK, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
I miss you guys too. I mean, it's great seeing you guys at the Creek and stuff, but then now I'm just kind of seeing folks little by little at the shows that I'm going to. So, it's unfortunate, but I miss you guys too.
Yeah, thank you. But,
oh, can I anybody got a cigarette in here? What's up, Matt Rivas?
How you doing,
yo.
man?
Ooh. Oh, shit. Oh, nice. Okay. Anybody got a refill on this Lone Star or something?
Yeah, we can swap you out for another one. So I wanted to, because you're a person who kind of faced backfire for your own joke, for a joke. I wouldn't want to say it is your own joke, but that's an unnecessary part of it. You faced backlash for a joke. I wanted to talk about the nature of comedy and what is there a such thing as, in your opinion, do you believe there's a such thing as crossing the line when it comes to comedy?
Yeah, I do think there are situations. It's all about context, right? Okay.
I think intention matters a lot too.
Intention, context is part of intention. So like, what is the comedian saying?
Mm-hmm.
Are they saying, I hate black people?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they saying, I hate black people, but, what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, like, there's a lot of, the words require the context to understand what's being said and in what intention,
Mm-hmm.
right? What are we talking about here? So I think if somebody is directly promoting like violence or hatred or something like, let's go, y'all should go out and kill, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So a good comedian or anybody worth their salt, is not going to be going on that route, right? That might be somebody who just started, who's just trying to get some shit out, and they got problems. But anybody who's like a professional, I don't think there's any line that's too far, as long as it's a joke. Like it's within the context of a comedy show on a stage. The context of that is comedy and joking. So not everything that's being said is true, or the position of the comedian. There's something called satire too, where that's Charlie Chaplin was famous for satire.
Yeah.
So Jon Stewart, famous for satire, right? So making fun of things, like Hitler, making fun of Hitler.
Yeah, that's one of mine. Yeah.
That's the thing. So that's a way to take power back. Like also this idea of this symbol of the swastika situation, specifically in my situation.
Yeah.
I feel like
there are several things that differentiated it, like the fact that it wasn't the Nazi swastika.
Yeah.
It was the Hindu symbol of peace, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's one aspect of it, but the other is that it's not the context is making fun of Hitler and the fact that he's a cultural appropriator.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not the worst thing Hitler did, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? So, but that's
it's
a
a
joke.
joke. Yeah.
That's a joke. So,
and it's on a wild mic. And
it's an open mic, but also like the idea that this symbol was stolen, meant peace and well-being, stolen, made to be hatred, right? And that symbol is so powerful that you can't even, you know what I'm saying? So like in my eyes, like just thinking about this later, it's almost like that symbol, Hitler's kind of won in the aspect of taking that symbol and making it his.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he kind of like...
He kind of like culture appropriated, but he got away with it.
He culturally appropriated
and got away with it. Yeah, he's like Justin Trudeau.
He rebranded the swastika.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying we should take it back.
Yeah.
No, dude, I went after this thing. I looked up on Google. There are thousands of lawsuits and cases where Indians from India are in America or Canada.
Probably like Canada and Germany more so.
No, America too. There are so many
too?
in America.
Really?
Where Hindus have had the swastika symbol on their house on the outside, like a mezuzah, like the Jews would do, a mezuzah on the door.
Yeah.
The Hindus might do that too, or they'll have it inside, and landlords seeing this or neighbors seeing it, and then them becoming a target for hate.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
That's why my mother said you should mind your own business.
Brown power.
Another thing she taught me is never to assume, because when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Don't assume what you don't know, because you can always ask, and a lot of that comes from people just assuming, thinking they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about the dude that took that picture and sent it to Rebecca at Creek. I ran into him yesterday.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, I want to apologize I didn't intend for this to happen." I'm like, all right, dude, whatever. I mean, I never met that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing is, your actions have consequences. So whether you intended something or not, your actions caused this thing, right? So I don't see how you get out of that. You know what I mean? You got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
For your actions.
But I think an apology is a form of trying to take responsibility. Now, you being that you're the injured party, don't have the option to accept it or not, because when somebody hurts you, you don't have to forgive them. You don't. That's a choice. And sometimes it takes more time.
Yeah.
But him apologizing, I do believe is a step in the right direction. Also, I have a hard stance on the fact that as comics, especially a lot of us who are struggling, who are on the lower rings of comedy, trying to work our way up, we shouldn't do that type of stuff to each other.
We shouldn't. Nobody should be doing that. You shouldn't be tattletelling.
Yeah, but it's even worse coming from other comics who should understand the premise of telling a joke. It's the whole objective is to make people laugh. Okay, there's nothing malicious, and I could have things wrong, but I actually look at comics as like, no matter how much they're fucked up on their own, whether drug addiction, etc., I believe oftentimes I'm like, oh, this has to be in one way or another a beautiful soul, whether I can see it or not, because what deciding to do comedy tells me about yourself is that for you, part of making life better for yourself is making other people laugh. And to me, that's a very beautiful thing. And, a lot of us are fucked up. That's with any arts community. A lot of us deal with a lot of trauma, biases, a lot of different things, like particularly in a city of like Austin, where a lot of us come from like unique parts of the country, and some of us might have never been outside of our bubble before. There's a lot of people who come from small towns or cities who've almost never been outside.
I mean, people usually tell you who they are.
Yeah.
Right. And
but
so
it's up to you to believe them.
If they want to keep telling you who they are and they keep acting a certain way, you gotta see a pattern there, and see.
Yeah. And I would never tell you to not listen to your voice, or pay attention, because that's a point I make all the time.
I'm not here holding any grudges. Like, people did things, they gotta live with the consequences of their actions. So
yeah. I kind of forgot where I was going there for a second. Got derailed a little bit. But it's okay, because we can kind of like move past it a little bit.
Let's all move forward.
Yeah, that's what life's about, moving forward.
Yeah.
I think that, first off, I want to know, since you've been doing comedy now for 2 years at this point, what is your wildest experience doing comedy? Do you have any crazy stories that you can share?
Dude, nothing too crazy. Everybody talks about heckling and stuff, but I've only been heckled twice. And it was at open mics. It wasn't even at a show.
Yeah.
And even heckling at a show, it's not really heckling. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I've never had anything aggressive. But one time at Creek, at an open mic, kind of earlier on, it was maybe first 6 months or something. I had a setup, and I asked everybody, what that's called? And this guy, out of nowhere, this little kid, 21 or something, he goes, "Faggot!" And it was so perfectly timed that he got a reaction, and I got so angry. And I started just like a child calling him a faggot. And then everybody started laughing at that. But I was really pissed. Like, I was like, "I'm going to come kick your fucking ass." And I threatened him, and he got scared because he left. And that's the only kind of crazy thing, but nothing too bad, but just the crazy places.
Yeah.
Like, transmission shop.
An interesting thing that you're saying about like, oh, I hear people like talk about heckling and stuff, but none of that has really happened for me. It's like my same experience, and I noticed like if you're big and brown, people don't ever.
And that's what
like
I think it is.
a lot of. I'm just being 100% honest. I'll see comics like go and do their bit, and they don't do it nearly like half the dark shit that I do. Not even a quarter. They'll say like one thing, and people will come up to them after and like give them a hard time. Like, you shouldn't be talking about that. I've had that happen virtually never. In fact, there's only, I mean, this is just my experience, you know, I'm not saying anything about it, but the only time I've ever had it happen was always with Jewish jokes. The only people who have ever came up to me and told me something about my jokes were Jewish people. And they like that. Like, if I make a joke about Germany or Hitler or like the Holocaust or anything, they're the only ones who like, I'll go through women material, black material, white material, poor people material. None of that bothers anybody. Nobody will ever come up from any of those groups. You know, you might get a heckler every once in a while, but like somebody coming up and saying like, oh, I have a problem with that joke. It's only ever happened with Jewish jokes. Bro, and it's happened several times.
I've never had that.
Yeah.
Never had anyone tell me anything where they've been upset with the joke.
Yeah.
That's also what's crazy about that, the banning. But, you know, that whole swastika bit, like painting it and stuff, that was only for... That was the only thing I was worried about. Like, it came out, people thought that's the type of stuff I do regularly. I just go up on shows and be like, you know what I mean? When that was designed...
It was really like a special case.
Just for that fucking one time, that place, that show... and it worked.
Yeah.
It did work.
And that was one of my biggest points with that. I'm like, anybody who was there, like, nobody had a problem when you did the bit.
Yeah.
It was actually, like, it went over pretty well.
Yeah. No audience members, nobody got upset. But I don't know, I guess, what's it, Dubs?
Yeah.
He sent it.
Yeah.
To Rebecca. That's what.
Yeah, he must have been upset to send it.
That's what everybody told me. So, do you know if that's true?
I heard the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he admitted to it. So.
Yeah.
He admitted to it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's not wise to do things like that because comedy is a community, and unfortunately there is a gossip train and like...
Yeah, word spreads easy. It's a very small... kind of community too.
Yeah, for Austin to be such a big city, it actually feels really small town a lot of the time.
I mean, there's a lot of people coming and going.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
But then there's a lot of people stay like who are implants.
Yeah,
and then people will be moving here slowly, and it starts to add to it. But,
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people here that have already established a bunch of shit, right?
Yeah, and one of the unique things about the Austin comedy scene, which I don't know if it's necessarily true in the other scenes, but we have a very integrated scene, and you're really like no more than like 1 point away from somebody like Joe. Somebody you know and talk to on the regular basis talks to Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And that's how it works out. Like somebody you know talks to Shane Gillis. Like and that brings me into my next question. Being as though, you know, there's such a huge club downtown, and Austin is one of the hottest places, not only in the country, but in the world for comedy. We have a lot of amazing talent and famous people who come out here to see the comedy. Because of that, at a place like the Creek, Sunset, if you go and visit the Mothership, you'll run into a lot of famous people there. Yeah. Has there ever been any, like, impactful meeting that you've had with somebody? Like, have you ever been dismayed, like somebody didn't come across exactly how you thought they would, or have you ever had like a really impactful encounter that benefited you, like for instance a comedian that you respect a lot giving you some advice, or having a conversation with you that kind of like sparked something for you?
Yeah, a lot. This is totally out of the blue, but like one was Adam Ray. I was at San Jack, and he was downstairs, and we were up on the balcony of San Jack, and we were talking to him for like 10 minutes, and then we actually fucking went down there and started talking to him more. Yeah. And yeah, he was just really cool.
Adam Ray is such a great guy.
Nice guy.
Super
so
nice
humble.
Guy. Yeah.
And also just like full of life and like very excited about life. Like,
yeah.
He's just like very,
Yeah, anytime that I've only spoken to Adam Ray twice. around Shakespeare's, and he always has a huge smile on his face, and like is excited to talk to people. Like he's never the type of guy like, let me go hide in the corner. He'll be out there right in the public, standing in the middle of 6th Street, having a conversation with the door guys at Shakespeare's, etc. And like,
dude, Shakespeare's, everybody goes in there. It's like, what the hell? Ari Spears was there last night.
Yeah, I saw Ari Spears there last night.
I got to see Tyler Fisher, who I got to see in New York and talk with a bit, and he was there at walking by Shakespeare's. But yeah, it's crazy all the people you see out there. Saw PHILLIP Esparza. Yeah, a bunch of people. Ron White, fucking.
Yeah, there's no shortage of talented comedians that you get to experience all the time.
I think the second mic I might have done in Creek, I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Creek, and the mic's supposed to start at 11, right? Or the sign-up is at 11. So I get over there, and like it's like my second or third time, and I'm just like, and I go to the front door, and I'm like, hey, hey, the mic's starting at 11. Where's the sign up? And so I ask all that, and then he's like, yeah, it's gonna start at 11. So I go outside, and I'm smoking a cigarette, and Joe Rogan pulls up, in like a Aston Martin or Bentley or whatever it was, right? He pulls up right in front of Creek, gets out of the car, and I'm just watching him. He walks in. And then 5 minutes later, I finish a cigarette, and I go in, and I'm walking in, and the guy, the door guy's like, hey, the mic's going to be sign-up's going to be at 12:30 now, because Joe Rogan just popped in. And I was like, oh, fuck it, Joe Rogan. Yeah, so that was kind of a cool, it was kind of cool to get bumped.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan.
That kind of reminds me, at the back of the Creek, like,
it felt like you're part of something there.
Yeah.
Like, shit's happening.
Yeah. That reminds me of an interaction I had 3 or 4 months into being at the Creek this time. I moved here April 4th of last year. And I go to the back of the Creek, and I'm waiting, and there's this guy who all the time was standing back there, and I would think, like, wow, he looks like Ari Shaffir. And then one day I get back there, and I think I see the same guy sitting in a chair, asking to talk to Rebecca, conversating with all the guys in the circle. And I go, wow, you look just like Ari Shaffir. And he's like, yeah, I guess I do. And I go around, and I turn around, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm just walking around talking to people, and I have a second look, and I'm like, somebody comes up and they goes, oh, Ari Shaffir is here. I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, no wonder he looks so much like Ari Shaffir. I went back up to him, and I'm like, I wasn't doing a bit or anything. I genuinely didn't know it was you. I apologize. I think you're a great comedian. Just the normal banter, the more normal ass kissing banter.
Now get down there and suck it.
Yeah. I remember this other time I accidentally I stopped. Do you know who Jesse is from Bad Friends?
No.
What's that girl's name? Jesse.
Yeah,
Jesse Johnson.
From
Yeah.
the show.
I was tripping on LSD, and I seen her back there, and I was just like very motivated to say hi, but I was like, oh, I'm tripping. I shouldn't go up and say hi. I'll probably do some weird shit. And she gets ready. Celia keeps going like, oh, I'll just introduce you to her. She's super cool. And I'm like, hold on, give me a second to calm down, gather my thoughts and shit. And I see her start to get up and leave, and I try to catch her before she goes, so I end up grabbing her shoulder as she's heading outside the door, as she's halfway out the door. I'm like, I'm sorry to do that. And I just get to explain. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm tripping right now. I like you. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you. I'm like, oh, I just think you're a good comic. And I was lying. I had never seen her comedy before. I just only seen her on the podcast with Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino. But, being around famous people always gives you like a weird, anxious energy.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah. That's why I try to avoid them. Like, I never take pictures with them because I feel like that's kind of asshole-ish unless you're like my fucking hero or something. I'll go and say hi, shake your hand, and say what's up, and I'll use that as motivation. Like, eventually, I hope they ask to take a picture with me. And I feel like that's the way it should be done,
I don't like asking for pictures. It's just weird. It just feels weird.
Yeah, it's inhuman in reality. You're objectifying people because you go, I don't want to talk to them
Yeah,
or
you're a
get to know them
product.
as a person or
Yeah.
shake their hand or anything. I'm just going to go up and go, let me get a picture. Or I'm going to fucking snap a picture. Dan Tom Green was walking up with his dog because he seen me walking with Athena, and he walked over with his dog, and Dan just lifts up his phone and goes, let me just snap this picture real quick. And in my head, I'm like, it's kind of awkward, but I'm like, hold on, let me pose for it while you're already up there. Let me just go ahead and, yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I was in Nashville at the oldest saloon in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and straight in front of me was Jordan Peterson sitting down looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walked in, I was just like,
How do
what
you
the
do?
fuck? Yeah, so for some reason, we just go up to each other, we're shaking each other's hands and
Yeah.
shit. And then I'm walking away, and for some reason, I'm like, all right, let me take a quick snap, right? So I take a picture, and then I look at it
You're
later.
not even human, dog.
And you know who was standing right next to him? Like 5'4"?
Who?
Ben Shapiro with a little yarmulke on.
Really?
And I didn't even see him.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah. But, yeah, I ran into Jordan Peterson. That was weird.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But Austin, man, a lot of comedians come through. It's great to meet a lot of people. You get to see so many people come through, you know?
Yeah, it's great. It's honestly great. I feel like our comedy scene in particular, one of the things that benefits it a lot is the fact that we have so much of an influx of comedians coming to visit because of just the hype around Austin. And then we have the normal visitation from the normal Austin tourism.
Yeah.
And, of course, places like LA and New York experience quite a bit of tourism to their comedy scenes, but I feel like it's very unique here. And that a lot of people who come there are a lot of comedy tourists who come here specifically for that, but a lot of the people who are just visiting Austin end up finding out like, oh, the mothership is down here, I'm gonna just go through and check out. And we don't have, just strictly like comedy tourists who come into our scene. It's a lot of people who are just touring on Six and stuff, and they just happen to notice the mothership or get barked into Shakespeare's or Sunset, and we get a diverse range of people. We don't have like regulars really when it comes to like open mics or shows. It's a lot of people who kind of just oftentimes end up there due to barking or handing out flyers, the normal day-to-day promotion.
So many shows, man.
Yeah.
So everything going on.
Yeah. So, let me ask you, what is your opinion on what is your opinion on Austin growing? And I mean, how long have you been out here? Let me ask you that first.
Dude, for a while, like 15 years.
Okay, so you've got to see the city grow.
Yeah, and I used to come out here. My cousins went to UT back in the 90s, and we used to come out here and hang out and stuff.
Yeah. So what has been your opinion on watching the city grow and transform, particularly over these last few years, like towards the tail end of COVID? Austin had a huge influx of new visitors and people moving here. It's always been very much a transplant city in Texas. There are native Austinites, but it's always been one of those places where people, at least from my experience talking to people, where people throughout the other regions of Texas kind of send all their black sheets, rebels, and artists and gay people. Like anybody who doesn't fit the normal mold in Texas they end up here in Austin. It's kind of like it's always been a dumping ground, kind of.
No, it's true. Because I was living in South Texas, and we were like, Austin is like the cool fucking place to go.
Yeah.
Houston, there's like an area that's kind of cool, like Austin. But for the most part, there's a couple of areas, but it's all scattered.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You'd have to drive 20, 30 minutes to one place, like an area where it's like 2-3 streets.
Yeah.
Like Montrose in Houston used to be a pretty cool place. But yeah, there's pros and cons. I mean, the cons is the price of the cost of living, right?
You've got to watch that rise significantly.
Yeah, and there's a reason there's so many homeless people, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, some people think they're busing them in. I don't know. But I think it's because the cost of living is going up. So, everybody that's homeless used to live somewhere at some point, right? So, I don't know. It's good and bad, too. But a lot of that California stuff, I just hate Californians.
As a native Texas, that's expected. As a native Texan, that is very expected. That seems to be what they all voice.
No, it's like people go to places. This happens everywhere throughout, time.
People ruin their home and then go to somebody else.
Yeah, and they want to come to a place because they like the place for the culture of the place, but then they want to change it.
Yeah.
And then they change it to their version of the place.
Yeah.
But, I guess that's the history of culture changing, things changing constantly. So
Yeah.
it's
That's just the effect of time. Time changes all.
Yeah.
Nothing stays the same. So
Yeah.
all it is how you adapt to that change.
Yeah,
And
it
how
is
you perceive
expensive for fucking artists of all types.
Yeah.
A lot of them have to move out or slowly just moving out. And it's only like a certain level of artists that will be able to afford it to live here.
I mean, just this place is a good example. This place is not much at all. How much would you guess we were playing here?
It is, considering it's an insane asylum, looks like a haunted insane asylum. I don't know, $200-300.
It's $1,010.
Oh Jesus!
I mean, we own this room too next to it, but
Oh, it's both of them for $1,300.
you have $1,010.
Not bad.
1,000, yeah, 1,100, yeah.
You need to get somebody working that lobby desk over there. Because
Yeah.
when I came in, nobody was manning the desk. Man. I swear to God.
All the lunatics are running free.
That's wild. What is this like at night when it's like dark and shit? Are the lights still on in the hallway all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely still looks
You know what this
crazy.
place looks like on the outside, especially? Did you ever watch Walking Dead?
I'm dead. I be telling people all the time when they come here, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen Nightmare on Elm Street, but this is
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
that
insane
one too.
asylum where the kids, they filmed that here. And people, I have this thing where I just be fucking with people with the straight face, and they'll really sit there and be like, really? Oh, no, I have seen that. Like, that makes sense.
What's that? Anybody watch Walking Dead?
Yeah.
No? Yeah?
Yeah, I watched The Walking Dead.
Do you remember that guy they ran into who had a lion or some shit?
At a lion?
He had a lion, a real lion.
Oh, Ezekiel.
Ezekiel.
Yeah.
This looks like Ezekiel's place. Yeah,
Yeah. So anything any particular interest you have outside of comedy?
Outside of comedy?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like, who are you?
Who the fuck am I?
Yeah. Who am I?
God damn it, dude. Okay, so I do a lot of stuff, but one of the things I do is I'm a designer.
Uh-huh.
I'm what's called this is going to be complicated. It's called human-centered design.
Yeah.
Or user-centered design or experience design.
Uh-huh.
So I do that 9 to 5, essentially.
What is that?
So it's kind of like a mix of psychology, sociology, and technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I study people who use something. Like it could be a physical experience, like going to a show, or it could be a digital experience, like an app, like Google Maps.
Mm-hmm.
So all the people that,
So you're the person who all those surveys go to?
yeah, that team.
Yeah. When you give those feedback reports and you're like, why are you
Yeah.
asking about my experience?
Yeah,
Fuck you.
or like they also call it like user interface design.
Yeah.
So anything with an app or a software or a website, stuff like that. But it's like if you're getting somebody like me, it's like a big system. It's not like a regular site.
Yeah.
So I do stuff for like
You tailor and curate the system to more to expand like the user experience.
yeah, it's basically, I mean, in a nutshell, I'm trying to meet your needs and then meet your unexpected needs. What you don't even know you want, I'm going to find out. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
It's cool. I work with developers building sites like that or platforms.
Are you interested in psychology? Is that one of...
That's I have a degree in psychology.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
And a master's or a bachelor's?
I got a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in sociology.
Oh, really? You have a master's in sociology too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fairly interesting. So, for those who might know, who might not know, what is the difference between sociology and psychology? So, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll actually give what comes to my mind first. Sociology, I think of more of the study of the interaction between people, and psychology, I think of as more of the interaction between the brain and the mind.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the psychology could be groups, behavioral within groups or individuals, but sociology is like, yeah, there's like culture
Uh-huh.
is sociology.
Uh-huh.
So like studying the culture of the Austin comedy scene, that's
Yeah.
sociology.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The
Yeah.
study of the interaction between
Yeah.
people
So
and
it could
groups
be,
of people.
and it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative data. So you're getting numbers, but you're also sitting down with people
Mhm.
and talking to them and finding out about their experience and
Yeah.
documenting all that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
psychology, I mean, sociology is not a hard science, is it?
cool. Sociology is a behavioral science.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's a science. Yeah. Dude, I got to do some badass shit in sociology. Like,
uh-huh.
one thing I did was I spent 3 months with cockfighters on the border of South Texas,
Uh-huh.
just researching. I embedded myself with them, and I studied them. I gained their trust, and I wrote a whole paper about cockfighting in South Texas.
Really?
Yeah, and then,
Was there anything really interesting you learned from that?
dude, it's nuts. It's obviously cartel shit.
Uh-huh.
There's
All of it is ran by the cartel?
There's a lot of cartel stuff. There's drugs. There's cocaine,
Yeah.
weed being sold. There's the sheriffs. There's constables. They're all involved. All the people that are from those small towns, pretty
Yeah.
much. And dude, just studying the fighting techniques of these cocks.
Whoa, they do martial arts?
Dude, they
Like
do
some-
so. It's
Like
too
some
much.
cocks know jujitsu, some know taekwondo.
Bro, yeah. some are black. Some are black belts. Some are blue belts.
Yeah, some are black cocks, some are white cocks.
They got black cocks too. I tell you what. There's this thing called a gaff.
Yeah.
So there's like hundreds of different types of gaffs,
Uh-huh.
and there's a gaff maker. And what the gaff is there's a claw
The talons on the claw.
on the rooster, and they put the gaff on there. And it's like a medieval armor with
Uh-huh.
like a spike. They could
Yeah.
have razors. They could have a blade on it. They could have a point on it.
Yeah.
And so when they fight, they the gaff is out there,
Yeah.
and it'll fucking tear up the other
Bird,
rooster. Yeah. And so there's a guy who makes that, and he's a very special guy
Uh-huh.
because there's only one guy who can make those.
Do roosters naturally want to fight to the death, or do they have to do something special, like train them like pit bulls to like make them extra aggressive? Like, do they give them a bump of cocaine and make
Yeah.
them like detox before they?
for real, they do give them cocaine too.
Really, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Roosters, they do cocaine. Yeah.
Uh
Crazy, man. But you'll see like the sheriff. You'll see like the sheriff of the town, the fucking drug dealer.
Uh-huh.
It's all in cahoots.
Yeah,
It's crazy, dude.
it's an economy down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I spent some time there, and then I spent time in Mexico City, in the black market there called Tepito, and Tepito is the hub for black market in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, where or what state in Mexico is that located in?
Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's its own area called Tepito, and it's the size of like Austin. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, but it's just an area.
Yeah, it's just an area of
Yeah.
People don't realize that on this side of the world, I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Mexico City, Rio de Janeiro might be huge too, but I think Mexico City is it's significantly larger than New York in terms of population.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I believe the population of Mexico City is counted at somewhere around 11 million, while New York is 9.
It's massive. Dude.
Yeah, it's massive. It's a massive city,
It's cool. I love Mexico City.
and it's
I've
been there longer than New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing place. And the difference in Mexico is the city, like Mexico City, the construction is based on like
Yeah, so Mexico City is 9.2, but also they don't have a census system like they do in the United States. It was like
Yeah,
it's counted at 9.2, while New York is 8.5. But anybody who's been to Mexico City will tell you that city is way larger than New York.
it's got more square footage too, I think.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's massive, dude. Yeah.
And it sits in a terrible region in Mexico too. It's like they like built it on top of like a lake or something like.
Yeah, if you go to the center of the city, the Zocalo, underneath the city is the pyramids.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
there's
that.
There's a church there, and it's literally directly under the church.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's in the center of the city. It's where all the government buildings are. It's a massive, like, square open space. It's pretty cool. I love Mexico City. We're getting some data.
Yeah, Mexico City is about 100 square miles bigger than New York.
What?
That's miles squared though.
All right, keeping us honest here.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jamie.
that's significantly larger.
Yeah.
That's still pretty significant. And psychology. Anything interesting in psychology? To me, psychology is a very interesting subject because what I meant earlier is that it's the interaction between the brain and the mind. That might seem like I'm using the same term over and over, but what I mean by it is like the mind I consider the thinking, the conclusion that you come to. Like when you're with that voice in your head, when you're using your senses, you're using your mind. Like the brain is the hardware, but the mind I think of is more like the electronic outcome.
Yeah,
Between the different interactions in the brain.
There's the physiological, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the
Metaphysical.
psychological.
Yeah, I think
Right.
of mine more like a metaphysical, you know. But is there anything particularly interesting that you gravitated towards or learned in psychology?
Psychology, I'm just fascinated by human behavior, but I guess one of the biggest takeaways, like, have you ever heard of the Milgram study?
No, I haven't.
It's a very famous study from the 70s. Dr. Milgram, his parents, I think, were in Auschwitz,
Mhm.
or in one of the camps, right, during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And so his whole life, he was like, are people inherently bad or evil, or are they good, or are they forced to make decisions that are difficult, or will they make good decisions in difficult situations, right? Will Hitler and the Nazi situation happen again? That's what he was, And his thesis in his mind was no, because people are good, right? So through Milgram's testing, what he found out was essentially they would test people to give somebody that they couldn't see a shock, an electrical shock. And they would just hear them, but they couldn't see them. And every time they answered a question wrong, they would get a shock, and the shock would get more and more severe. And so this is the most important part of the study. There's somebody there who's conducting the study and telling the participant to continue to shock the person, right? And so the outcome of that study is that.
Oh, I if I'm not mistaken, isn't this the experiment? Didn't he have the experiment where sometimes the people could see them and sometimes they couldn't? Or am I mistaken? No.
No, you couldn't see them, but you would hear them.
Yeah, I know about that.
And they would essentially have the participant kill them, and they would hear them dying. Like, oh, please don't do it. And they would keep doing it, and they were told to do it. So the result of the study was he found out that like 9 out of 10 people will kill that motherfucker
If they're told to.
if they can take the responsibility
And shift it to somebody
off
else.
themselves and put it on to that person, because that's what's happening. That person's taking responsibility for this person's actions, and that's the essence of the fascist regime and how that can happen, because everybody displaces responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think
People have a
that's-
natural tendency
yeah.
to.
So he went in wanting to prove something, and he got proved the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I really like that study, and I think it's a good
Yeah,
lesson.
Milgram is very similar to the Stanford experiments. And it
Stanford
shows-
experience.
Yeah,
good
that's
too,
what
yeah.
he just showed me a post of. And the conclusion of the Stanford experiment was just that people, when given the opportunity, will be creatively evil. Like creative evil was kind of like the whole phrase that ended up coming out of that study, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, the caveat to that is that one of the important factors of that study is that when you put people in a position, a role, they will become that role.
Yeah.
So, like, I can say you're the prisoner and he's the guard, right? And he will become the guard in his mind.
Yeah.
You will become the prisoner in your mind. And then the next day I can swap y'all and y'all will play your role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's not only that, but I will see you as the prisoner.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You're less than.
Yeah.
He's perceiving you as less than because he has this outfit, you have that outfit.
Yeah.
And you're being told that this person's.
Yeah. But also, one of the landmarks was the experiment, I believe, was that people would take it to extra lengths. They would go further.
Yeah.
People had a tendency to go further in the ways that they decided to be evil, essentially.
Dude,
is what
they
it
had
came
to shut down the experiment.
Yeah.
Because it went way too far.
Yeah.
And the guy, he let it go far.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those people who I think, like, wow, I definitely that's a pushing right up against the line type of scientific experiment, but I believe stuff like that is also kind of necessary to humanity.
I bet you those prisoner participants were fucked up for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Why
They
wouldn't
were
you?
literally in Abu Ghraib shit.
No, for real.
Yeah.
Oh,
Have you
volunteer
ever seen-
status.
Have you ever seen what's that guy's name? Schroeder?
Schrodinger.
No. The film director who did Taxi Driver, he wrote it.
No.
Schrader? Jamie's getting it right now. Schrader?
Martin Scorsese wrote Taxi Driver.
No, no. Paul Schrader. Paul Schrader. That's who it is.
Uh-huh.
So Paul Schrader is the writer of Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese
He's the director.
Directed it, yeah. Paul Schrader did a movie called The Gambler.
Uh-huh.
And it is badass, dude. It's about a guy who was a prison guard at Abu Ghraib, and it's based on all real shit. And it's really cool. Check it out.
Yeah.
The Gambler.
I definitely got to check
Paul
that
Schrader
out.
did some other shit, too. What did he do? He did some big stuff.
Mhm.
If you look up his IMDb stuff, it's
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the card counter?
The Gambler? Card Counter? Is it with that guy, what's that actor's name? Who's the star of that movie?
Oscar Isaac?
That's it. The Card Counter?
Oh, he did American Gigolo.
Yes. The Card Counter.
I always thought that word was pronounced gigolo. You know, when you're late to the party?
Yeah, you haven't seen American Gigolo?
There you go. Thank you.
Deuce Bigelow? Male Gigolo?
Yeah. So I think we are getting ready to just about wrap it up here.
Y'all trying to wrap this shit up?
It's getting pretty late.
Man. All right, get the fuck out of here. All right. Yeah.
But if you want to give a shout out one more time to your social media and your shows that are out here in Austin.
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Joking. No, catch me at Rex the Dog. July is our last show at the house, the house we've been doing it in for 2 years.
Gonna move to a different venue?
Possibly, we're looking into it. But 2 years at this location. In July, we're having a double show, so it'll be 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So 2 shows, limited capacity. We sold out. Fuck, we've been selling out. We had people come up walk ups that we had to turn away at a house show. Fucking crazy, dude.
That's great.
I felt bad. But yeah, we got that going on. Comedy Mixtape at Radio is monthly. You can catch it on Radio East or Radio South's IG page. They got all that shit. Catch me at Phil is Funny.
Perfect.
Hell
And
yeah.
Phil, we will definitely be sitting down with you again soon. There's a lot more things that I wanted to cover, but we've been trying to keep these interviews under 2 hours for the moment. But that leaves so much potential for the future, brother, because you're an amazing guest. And again, I just want to give you your flowers one more time. You're an important staple to the scene out here. You're a great comic, and not only that, but most importantly, a great guy. And we love having you here, and
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
DJ.
you spending your time with us in
Love you
these
too, man.
beginning of
Appreciate
us
you.
restarting this, dude.
Hell yeah.
Fuck
Wishing
yeah.
y'all all the best. Keep watching. Subscribe. Smash that shit.